Federalism is a system of government in which the power is divided between a central authority and various constituent units of the country. Usually, a federation has two levels of government. One is the government for the entire country that is usually responsible for a few subjects of common national interest. The others are governments at the level of provinces or states that look after much of the day-to-day administering of their state. Both these levels of governments enjoy their power independent of the other. The change that took place in 1993 was that the regional governments were given constitutional powers that were no longer dependent on the central government. An example is the Constitution of Belgium, which was designed to reduce the power of the central government and to give these powers to the regional governments. The difference between the unitary system and federalism is that under the unitary system, either there is only one level of government or the subunits are subordinate to the central government. The central government can pass on orders to the provincial or local government. In contrast, in a federal system, the central government cannot order the state government to do something. The state government has powers of its own for which it is not answerable to the central government. Both these governments are separately answerable to the people. The key features of federalism include two or more levels, or tiers, of government. Different tiers of government govern the same citizens, but each tier has its own jurisdiction in specific matters of legislation, taxation, and administration. The jurisdictions of the respective levels or tiers of government are specified in the Constitution, ensuring that the existence and authority of each tier of government is constitutionally guaranteed. The fundamental provisions of the Constitution cannot be unilaterally changed by one level of government. Such changes require the consent of both levels of government. Courts have the power to interpret the Constitution and the powers of different levels of government, with the highest court acting as an umpire if disputes arise between different levels of government in the exercise of their respective powers. Sources of revenue for each level of government are clearly specified to ensure its financial autonomy. The federal system thus has dual objectives: to safeguard and promote the unity of the country while accommodating regional diversity. Therefore, two aspects are crucial for the institutions and practice of federalism. Governments at different levels should agree to some rules of power sharing, and they should trust that each would abide by its part of the agreement. An ideal federal system has both aspects: mutual trust and agreement to live together. The difference between coming together and holding together federalism can be illustrated by looking at examples like the USA, Switzerland, and Australia, which are prime examples of coming together federations. In these cases, independent states unite voluntarily to form a larger nation, each retaining significant power. It's akin to a group of friends deciding to form a club, where everyone has an equal say. On the other hand, we have holding together federations like India, Belgium, and Spain. In these instances, power is divided between the central government and the states, often with the central authority holding more sway. Think of it as a family where the parents set the rules, but each child has their own space to express themselves. In coming together federations, states are strong and autonomous, while in holding together federations, the central government plays a more dominant role. Both systems showcase the diversity of governance and how different nations balance power. Now, what makes India a federal country? The Constitution originally provided for a two-tier system of government: the Union government, or what we call the central government, representing the Union of India, and the state governments. Later, a third tier of federalism was added in the form of panchayats and municipalities. As in any federation, these different tiers enjoy separate jurisdiction. The Union list includes subjects of national importance, such as defense of the country, foreign affairs, banking, communications, and currency. They are included in this list because we need a uniform policy on these matters throughout the country. The Union government alone can make laws relating to the subjects mentioned in the Union list. The state list contains subjects of state and local importance, such as police, trade, commerce, agriculture, and irrigation. The state governments alone can make laws relating to the subjects mentioned in the state list. The concurrent list includes subjects of common interest to both the Union government as well as the state governments, such as education, forest, trade unions, marriage, adoption, and succession. Both the union as well as the state governments can make laws on the subjects mentioned in this list. If their laws conflict with each other, the law made by the union government will prevail. Additionally, the union government has the power to legislate on these residuary subjects. How is federalism practiced? The creation of linguistic states was the first and a major test for democratic politics in our country. Many old states have vanished and many new states have been created. Areas, boundaries and names of the states have been changed. In 1947, the boundaries of several old states of India were changed in order to create new states. This was done to ensure that people who spoke the same language lived in the same state. Some states were created not on the basis of language but to recognize differences based on culture, ethnicity or geography. These include states like Nagaland, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand. When the demand for the formation of states on the basis of language was raised, some national leaders feared that it would lead to the disintegration of the country. A second test for the Indian Federation is the language policy. Our constitution did not give the status of national language to any one language. Hindi was identified as the official language. But Hindi is the mother tongue of only about 40% of Indians. Therefore, there were many safeguards to protect other languages. Besides Hindi, there are 22 other languages recognized as scheduled languages by the Constitution. States too have their own official languages. Much of the government work takes place in the official language of the concerned state. Unlike Sri Lanka, the leaders of our country adopted a very cautious attitude in spreading the use of Hindi. According to the Constitution, the use of English for official purposes was to stop in 1965. However, many non-Hindi speaking states demanded that the use of English continue. In Tamil Nadu, this movement took a violent form. The central government responded by agreeing to continue the use of English along with Hindi for official purposes. Many critics think that this solution favored the English-speaking elite. Promotion of Hindi continues to be the official policy of the Government of India. Promotion does not mean that the central government can impose Hindi on states where people speak a different language. The flexibility shown by Indian political leaders helped our country avoid the kind of situation that Sri Lanka finds itself in. Restructuring the center-state relations is one more way in which federalism has been strengthened in practice. For a long time, the same party ruled both at the center and in most of the states. This meant that the state governments did not exercise their rights as autonomous federal units. The central government would often misuse the constitution to dismiss the state governments that were controlled by rival parties. This undermined the spirit of federalism. All this changed significantly after 1990. This period saw the rise of regional political parties in many states of the country. This was also the beginning of the era of coalition governments at the center. Since no single party got a clear majority in the Lok Sabha, the major national parties had to enter into an alliance with many parties including several regional parties to form a government at the center. A major step towards decentralization was taken in 1992. The constitution was amended to make the third tier of democracy more powerful and effective. Now it is constitutionally mandatory to hold regular elections to local government bodies. Seats are reserved in the elected bodies and the executive heads of these institutions for the scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. At least 1/3 of all positions are reserved for women. An independent institution called the State Election Commission has been created in each state to conduct panchayat and municipal elections. The state governments are required to share some powers and revenue with local government bodies. The nature of sharing varies from state to state. Rural local government is popularly known by the name Panchayati Raj.